That's where we're still going to see that snow ongoing for today. So this makes sense. Our additional snowfall seeing, under 2 centimeters here in southern Ontario, higher amounts as you inch towards the east, and even higher amounts as we get into Quebec. For example, an additional 5 to 10 centimeters for you, and certainly some higher amounts here towards areas up and down the St. Lawrence Seaway, probably 10 to 15 centimeters potentially. I've got some good news in Ontario, though, for tomorrow, Kabir. We're going to be colder, yes, but the sun is coming back. So, I'm going to take that over the rainy, dreary, mild weather we've had of late. How about you?
Honestly, given where I currently am, Nicole, I will welcome that sunshine with open arms. If you take a look here, I'm at the Yonge and Bloor intersection. The wind has definitely picked up, and with these skyscrapers, of course, and with the weather that we're seeing, usually we get these nice tunnels of air throughout the downtown core. As a result, though, we're seeing lots of people on their morning commutes. I've seen people out walking their dogs, actually. If you take a look behind me, there you go, going out for a walk with the pooches. But we're not necessarily seeing a ton of snow on the ground here. It's mostly this kind of mix. But overall, as people walk on that throughout the day, that's going to start to dissipate, in addition to there being quite a bit of salt. In fact, you can see a couple of the city's smaller snowplows out, of course, to combat all of this on the smaller streets. But overall, not a total snow event, as I would like to say, but definitely more than we've seen in a couple of weeks, but nothing like, of course, what we're seeing over with Mark Robinson. And now, of course, back to you, Nadine. Warm in the studio. I'm very, very jealous.
Well, thank you so much, Kabir. Yes, it is warm in here. It is -3 in Toronto, wind chill of -18. So definitely feeling a bit on the chilly side. Want to give a quick update on an accident. Eastbound 401 express lanes closed east of Warden in Scarborough due to multiple vehicle collision there. So drivers will have to keep that in mind if, for instance, that is part of your daily, travel route because of the snowfall conditions. Drive according to Kerry Schmidt, Officer Kerry Schmidt, OPP. Always say drive according to road conditions. And there you see, as we take you to our radar imagery for us, you can see there are some patches across the GTA, but still some heavier snowfall. You can see just around the Milton-Brampton area. And then certainly once we head along the 401 corridor, moving toward eastern Ontario, looking at some steady and heavier snowfall through that region there. Now, conditions will improve, like Nicole was mentioning, across the GTA as we continue through the rest of today. However, we still do have some snowfall to contend with across parts of eastern Ontario into the nation's capital and then into southern Quebec as well. And southern Quebec is really an area of concern because you see it's not just the snowfall that we are getting here along the St. Lawrence and just north of that as well. But this area of pink that we've got for us across south of the St. Lawrence, major population centers through the eastern townships, the Sherbrooke region, that is creating very icy and slippery conditions across the region. And once we continue into the rest of today, so through this evening, as the colder air continues to push in for us, we will see a lot of this rainfall and the freezing rain that we've got across areas south of the St. Lawrence, that'll be pushing out. And so snowfall on top of some patchy freezing surfaces or icy surfaces, that can be a bit on the dangerous side because, of course, you won't be seeing it. Now, of course, in the Ottawa area, they've already picked up several centimeters of snowfall. Mark, the ground is snow covered. We can see the snow flying. I have to admit, though, when you were last out and I saw the Christmas trees, or at least the pine trees, they looked absolutely beautiful with the snow.
Yeah, it really did. I kind of like that little area, that little section of Ottawa. I think Toronto needs more of those little pedestrian areas that where cars no longer go. But speaking of cars, here I am on Wellington, just in front of Parliament. And you can see there's not that many people moving around. I think some people have sort of said, you know, I'm going to take the day off, or I'm not going to be on the road at this point, because usually this is quite a busy street. I'm going to walk a little bit this way. You can see I'm walking on a few little snowbanks here, so you can see that there has been snow here in Ottawa. It has been plowed away and just sort of sat there, beginning to melt away, and it was kind of gray and looking. But now we're getting this nice fresh snowfall right on top of everything. Everything's gone back to white, so it kind of looks beautiful again. Bit of a switch for me because I was just in Florida, so coming back to winter, I get reminded, oh yeah, it's winter. Kind of enjoying this, gotta say, back in the storms. And this one is going to be quite as bad as what I saw in Fort Erie just before Christmas, but it's enough to slow the city down a little bit. As we've been saying, the snow is mostly falling to the south of Ottawa and not in the downtown core. So again, not too bad. But Nicole, you can give us a little bit more details on where we're going to see all the snowfall and when I can go inside and get warm.
I've got all the nitty gritty. Well, you got Florida, so you're all stocked up. You don't need any more heat. I did notice that you had a tan. I'm very jealous. I'm glad. Hope you had a good time. All right, let's jump into our current conditions. We've got -3 for Toronto, -3 for Ottawa. Just seeing this from the city of Toronto, they have issued an extreme cold weather alert, which happens for Toronto when forecast temperatures are expected to dip to -15, which we are seeing overnight tonight. So tomorrow morning is going to feel like -20. Let's go to this. Leah works here at the Weather Network. She's behind the scenes on our social team. She says, feels like I'm back in Saskatchewan. Happy birthday to me. She's back in Ontario, obviously, wiping off her car. So you'll be doing that in a lot of areas, of course, this morning across southern and eastern Ontario. Mark Robinson through the Ottawa area. That's where we're continuing to see the, ongoing snow for the commute. Now, it does taper off here through southern Ontario, but I will say if you're traveling, along the 400 through even that mid-afternoon, you're still going to see snow kind of whipping around, which is never fun and can slow things down. By the afternoon, though, looks good here across the GTA. A little bit still ongoing there, Cornwall, even Kingston, and maybe Brockville. So Ottawa, let's highlight you for a moment and see here what the winds look like. Take you to this next map here, and you can see that we're seeing wind gusts up to about 40 kilometers an hour, but by the time we get into this evening, snow starts to calm down, winds taper off. But how much more snow are we adding? Well, on top of what you've seen here across southern Ontario, under 3 centimeters towards Ottawa, we've got an additional 10 centimeters of snowfall there. Could see a little bit more towards Cornwall. Quebec as well has been in the thick of this storm too since the overnight hours, and we're going to continue to see about 5 to 10 centimeters from Montreal. Quebec City about 10 to 15 centimeters for you. Now let's go to you, Kabir, who's in Toronto. TDSB is on a PA day today, so my daughter, for example, doesn't have school. So I think we can see evidence of that. You were saying a lot of cars off the road, so that's good, of course, when you've got weather like this. But tell me what you're seeing in terms of people walking around and how they're looking.
So I'm actually looking down Bloor Street right now, Nicole, and what you're seeing is people exiting from the subway station, from Bloor Yonge Station, and you can see the commute really starting to begin. But one thing that I want to reiterate that you said, not a ton of cars on the road. And I am saying that in with a little bit more surprise, in the sense of I think people are being very sensible about this. And of course, maybe taking that day off, maybe working from home. The PA day definitely helps. You're seeing a few cars now coming in here, of course, right as I say that. So great timing on that one, Kabir. And of course, as always, Toronto traffic. Now, what I will say, though, is the ground is quite slippery with this type of snow. And that's something I have noticed a couple people slipping and sliding around. Lots of dogs out for their walks, wearing lots of little booties downtown, but nowhere near what we're seeing in other parts, of course, of Southern Ontario. What we are seeing are strong wind gusts, in fact, strong enough that I have to hold my phone here. But I'm very excited. Later today, I'll be heading out to the warmth down south. So it'll be quite the contrast from feeling like minus 20, which we were saying it feels like with the wind chill, to positive 20. Definitely the change that I want to go ahead and see. And now, of course, we're going to go back into the studio. Nadine, I'm going to ask you, though, how many centimeters of snow can I be expecting here in the downtown core?
Well, you know, Kabir, essentially things are improving for the GTA. So we're not really looking at significantly higher totals for the downtown region as a whole. It's really areas outside the city, especially as you head toward the east and into southern Quebec, where we'll be seeing the focus of that. Hope Kabir checks his flight status because there are a couple of delays ongoing at Pearson International. But Pearson... Kabir did mention that it is on the gusty side. We see there are a few flakes falling downtown, but not much in the way of accumulations. And part of the reason for that is because we've been very mild for the last few days. So, of course, we had the rain at first. The ground is still warm. So a lot of the snow that came down initially melted on contact, so not much for accumulations. But there are a few pockets right now for us, for anyone heading out onto the roads, where it is a little bit heavier in terms of that snowfall happening across the region. And some of those regions will be essentially from Highway 3 areas along the Lake Erie shoreline, heading up to around Brantford, getting to just east of Kitchener, in toward the Milton area, toward Hamilton, the QEW region, so say around Stony Creek. Those regions, they're dealing with some slightly heavier intensity snowfall. But for the GTA itself, it is quite varied across the region. There are some partially covered snow, partially covered roads with snowfall, and as well some reduced visibility across the area because, of course, the snow is falling. Not much of it might accumulate in some areas because the roads have been treated, but that flying snowfall that is falling, that will reduce your visibility. And then as we head into eastern Ontario, that's really where the focus of the more intense snowfall has been across the region. Some updates to the snowfall totals we've had. Ottawa up to 17 centimeters as of 8 a.m. Montreal 16 and Quebec City 12 centimeters of snowfall. So Mark, definitely you're in the nation's capital, Parliament Hill there, and the flame is going behind you. Hopefully it can help to keep you warm.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to avoid the politicians and hot air joke while I'm standing on Parliament here. But definitely, I'm gonna take you just over here. Dave, you shoot there, you can sort of see where they're working away. So we've sort of seen the plows going back and forth, keeping the roads here at Parliament clean, the sidewalks clean. Now they are doing work on Centre Block right now. If you come back over here, Dave, a little bit, you can see the giant cranes back there working away in the snow. And I think they're actually not working right now, which I would not blame them, given the amount of snow coming down. One of the things I found as we've walked up from the hotel to Parliament, I've slowly been adding layers. It's just a little bit colder in these sort of open areas. We're getting a bit of wind. The snow is coming down at a fairly good clip. It's not Fort Erie craziness. We're not talking full whiteout conditions, but definitely enough in the nation's capital to slow things down a bit. I haven't seen a lot of cars on the road, not a lot of people walking around. I mean, it's still a little bit early, but not that much. So I definitely think a lot of people have said, you know what, today I'm going to use this snowfall, this storm as as a reason to work from home or to not send the kids to school. I know we have had some bus cancellations. Most of the schools schools, as far as I know, are still open. So yes, kids still have to go to school, but it's kind of up to you to try and get them to school. But let's go back inside and find out exactly how much snow is going to be falling and where, and whether or not you're going to be having to send your kids to school.
Yeah, you're right. Well, TDSB has a PA day today, so kids are home or at, different activities for today. As Mark mentions, a lot of school boards in Ottawa are open, but the buses are pulled off the roads. And you can see here that darker blue zone, Kingston between Montreal. It's kind of thinning out here across southern Ontario. I want to talk about Toronto for a moment. Has it been mild? Yes, it's been mild. Have we seen a lot of snow? No. I want to show you this here. This is 2 centimeters that we saw back on December 23rd. So it has been a long stretch of no snow. We've seen the rain, of course. We've seen the mild temperatures. So we've gotten back into the snow. Also, other areas seeing snow. This is near Ottawa. This is in Canada. 9 centimeters so far. Let's take a quick look at temperatures here. It's -3 for Toronto, -6 for Muskoka. And Kabir, temperatures are getting even colder overnight tonight. Are you ready for it to feel like -20 tomorrow morning?
You know what, Nicole? I am very, very pleased to say that I will be in Florida tomorrow. So it could be as cold as it needs to be, frankly. Would I be ready for it, though? No. To be 100% honest with you, I wasn't actually prepared for this much wind and how cool it actually is. We're seeing a lot of that snow, of course, moving around. We're seeing a lot of people going out, of course, for runs and doing their morning errands. It's really sweet. But I think what we are definitely going to be noticing are these wind gusts and a lot of these little snowflakes. And of course, the snow on the ground here, some of it is moving around right now. And as those winds settle, I'm sure that is going to go ahead and calm down now. We are seeing a bit of this morning traffic start to occur already. And of course, we are seeing the pedestrian traffic picking up now as everybody wakes up when we get closer to the 9 o'clock hour. But of course, strong winds in the downtown core and not too much snow here on the ground, but it is making it for slippery conditions, but it's not keeping people from their morning workouts, as you can see. All right, so Nadine, we're going to see a couple centimeters here for the downtown core of Toronto, but nothing compared to what's going on up in Ottawa, right?
Yeah, certainly so. They're getting a lot more snowfall. They've had a lot of snow already in that region. As a matter of fact, 8 a.m. update, 17 centimeters in Montreal. Joliet in Quebec, 16 centimeters of snowfall as of 7 a.m. Want to go to a question from YouTube. The viewer wondering, is this snow going to be hard to shovel? Should I shovel now or can I wait for it to end? Well, it depends on where you are. Certainly, we are seeing snowfall easing across much of the GTA, but in through eastern Ontario, southern Quebec, still looking at quite a bit of snowfall still to come. We want to take you into what our nation's capital, Mark Robinson. He is just setting up. But before we get to Mark, let's take you to the radar. And again, just that question with regard to should I shovel now or should I wait? Not much to shovel across parts of southern Ontario. So I think if you do shovel now, there's still perhaps a couple more centimeters of snowfall to come in some regions, but certainly much more of it once we head into eastern Ontario and into southern Quebec. As a matter of fact, in the Ottawa area, about a 10 centimeters of additional snowfall mark for folks to be shoveling through that region.
Yeah, you know what, welcome to live TV. We were trying to show you everybody working. There was a whole bunch of plows back here working to clear that away. And then, of course, as soon as we got into position, got ready, they moved away and they're no longer in the shot. That is very, very typical of how this often works. But yeah, definitely seeing, I actually kicked away some of the snow here in this very large field out in front of Parliament. And you can see there's just a little bit of like old snow on the ground here, a little bit of ice down there, and I'm looking at about anywhere between 5 to 10 centimeters sitting on top of here. When we measure snow, when we try to measure the depth of the snow, we have to have a fairly specific set of criteria. There has to be very little wind, The snow just has to settle down on it, on an area. We have to make sure that that's totally clear. So taking a quick measurement, say here, is maybe not the best way to do it. So you get a general idea, simply because we've got a little bit of wind here, a little bit of movement. They've been shoveling, so we can't necessarily say for sure that's the exact amount, which is why I'm giving you a bit of a range instead of it's exactly 10 centimeters, just because I want to be as accurate as I can, but I don't want to get it completely wrong. Yeah, we're looking at a few more centimeters coming down. They're working away, trying to keep everything open. A lot of people staying home. And so I think we're seeing just not as many cars as we normally would, or not as many visitors here at right on Parliament. Nicole?
All right, thanks so much, Mark. It looks pretty snowy out there. It looks legit, right? Now, this afternoon in Toronto, highlighting you right now, this afternoon, -3 feels like -10 with that northerly wind sustained at 29 kilometers an hour. Now, I want to jump you ahead to Saturday morning. It's going to feel like -20 for Toronto, -24 towards Timmins. And the city of Toronto has done this. They've issued an extreme cold weather alert, which they do when temperatures either dip down to -15 or we have that wind chill of -20 or below, which we have for tomorrow morning. Now into Quebec, also cold for your Saturday morning. We'll be looking at -17 for Montreal, -16 for Drummondville. But I have some good news before I get back to the bad news for today. The sun is coming back out here in Ontario. We've got sunshine and yes, cooler temperatures than we've seen in a while, but let's enjoy this. Okay, I want to get back to your weather story here, where Mark is and through Ottawa. Certainly some tricky travel for the morning commute, for the afternoon commute as well. Southern Ontario, things really tapering off. Downtown core of Toronto, where we're going to check in with Kabir in a moment. Snow, a dusting. Few centimeters on your car, that's clearing off. But certainly if you're traveling along the major routes through the mid-morning, you're still going to see some snow blowing around. And then by the afternoon, GTA looking good, looking good to get around. The plows have been out, so that will certainly be a better travel situation. We've got an additional under 3 centimeters here across most of Southern Ontario. Note the higher amounts into places like Cornwall, for example. But Kabir, in downtown Toronto, it's more of a slushy situation, but certainly it's a lot colder than we have been for a while. I was looking at the data, and for Pearson, we have had more days above the freezing mark for daytime highs than below. There's only been one day when our daytime high was below freezing, so this is kind of like a novelty for 2023.
Yeah, and it looks like those de-icing fields at Pearson Airport are going to be well into operation today, especially for aircraft that are sitting outside. In fact, Nicole, I have the vents open on my coat because it has been so warm, and I can definitely feel that draft inside here. As much as this is nice and warm, I guess it's a bit of an adjustment for us in Southern Ontario to be feeling like -10, going down to -20. Will the sunshine help us tomorrow? Fingers are crossed. But as you can see here, the morning commute very much in effect. Many people driving, walking, coming to and from the subway. The entrance for Bloor-Yonge is actually just right through here behind this sculpture. And we are seeing people just continuing on with their day. One thing I will mention, if you are going out for a walk, to definitely ensure that you have the right footwear on. That means winter boots, folks, because I am seeing a lot of people slipping and sliding in their running shoes. And that's something I think that we are forgetting when the weather changes like this, especially so drastically to what we have been seeing. But overall, more snow on the ground than when we started, but that slush already forming here on the roads. And you can definitely see people are driving with care and being extra careful, especially as the ground freezes. It's been relatively warm from the warmer temperatures that we've seen. Snow's melting on contact, making it relatively slippery. So people are driving really carefully here. I have been watching them with my hawk eyes. But overall, yeah, relatively nice and cool with the wind chill, especially with that wind blowing in here at Yonge and Bloor. That's what we've been seeing. All right, so one thing I also wanted to go ahead and mention is we are seeing a bit of blowing snow, which I didn't necessarily go ahead and expect from us. But I'm sure Nadine has a bit more insight there from what we are seeing down here in the downtown core. Are we necessarily going to be seeing more wind, or are we going to see this calming down?
Well, you know, Kabir, it's going to be a little bit on the windy side for us for today. So we'll still be dealing with that, especially through parts of eastern Ontario, southern Quebec. So that'll make things a bit tricky for many of the drivers where we have that blowing snow. But you can see there in terms of that snowfall on our radar imagery, there are a few pockets where we've got some breaks in the snow for us across the GTA. It's a little bit heavier along the 401 as we head toward eastern Ontario. And then you can see there from just around, say, Georgetown, Milton, toward the Hamilton region, Brantford, 401, 403 combination through that region. Snowfall is still a little bit intense as we head around the areas just to the west of Lake Ontario there. So we'll have to watch out for not only slippery roads, but also some continued reduced visibility there. I want to go to a question from YouTube. So Sarah Lynn Morin-Wen is asking, is it going to be clear in Niagara? Well, for you, Sarah, thank you so much for your question. For anyone asking questions, of course, let us know where you are. Thanks to Sarah for letting us know that she is wondering about Niagara. There is still a couple of centimeters to be had for you in the Niagara region, and most of that will essentially be for this morning. As we head into the afternoon, that intensity will begin to wane. And I do have some good news for you, Sarah, because as we head into tomorrow, despite the fact that it will be cold, we've got sunshine coming through. So to answer your question, clear, yes, but we'll just have to wait until tomorrow for those skies to clear. That is something we haven't seen in quite a long time across southern Ontario. Lots of full sunshine across the region. But for anyone heading out onto the roads for us, particularly for this morning around the GTA, there are variations with regard to the intensity of the snowfall and the road conditions as well. So you can see along many of the roadways. So Highway 400, for instance, if we head from the Barrie region, there are some variations with regard to conditions. So you'll see the top end toward Barrie. We are seeing some of that snowfall. You'll catch some dry patches there where you are looking at not too much in terms of snowfall, but then once you head down Newmarket, down toward the GTA, it is picking up a little bit, and even around the DVP as well, and heading around the 401 toward the Oshawa region. Some of those roads are snow. We're looking at reduced visibility. So, Nicole, we head on over to you. Lots of folks are wondering what's still to come.
Yes. And so, you know, as you mentioned, generally Southern Ontario through this morning and afternoon, things are tapering off, getting better. But we can't say the same thing as we head into Eastern Ontario, Southern Quebec and Atlantic Canada. You're really starting to get into it right now. But let's go to Patrick right now in Quebec. He's been there this morning with an update.
The system started to dump precipitation over southern Quebec last night. At first, it was a mix of ice pellet, freezing rain, and snow. That's why this process takes a lot of humidity out of the air. So that's why this morning we're not waking up with the 20 centimeter we thought we were going to wake up to, but mostly like 15. But if you look at, here's a sidewalk that hasn't been cleared. If you take that snow off, the top snow, which is very light, it's not very thick snow. Underneath there's a crust, and that crust, that's the mix of ice pellet and freezing rain at the beginning of the precipitation. For the few of the next hours, we will have about 5 to 10 centimeters more. It's not very slippery, but you can easily get stuck in those snowbanks.
That's right. And in Quebec, there are a list of school closures. So, you know, do check, of course, for your school board. I'm sure you already have. If you're a parent, you know what's going on. But yeah, school closures in Quebec. We are continuing to see through the afternoon snowfall. But as we get you into Saturday morning, a nice clearing. And I'm happy to say the sun is going to make a nice appearance as we get you into your weekend. But we do have the additional snowfall to contend with. Montreal, let's add on 5 to 10 centimeters, a little bit more towards Trois-Rivières into Quebec. So that's about 10 to 15 centimeters. South of that, we are seeing some higher amounts, certainly. So again, ongoing through today, certainly tricky travel. I do want to show you this in New Brunswick. This is Danny. He says the snow is higher than he is. The snow has changed to ice pellets now. The transit buses are still on the road here in Fredericton, New Brunswick. So yes, you next are starting to feel the effects of this storm. It is a lot messier and sloppier. We've got the ice pellet risk. We've got snow. We've got the potential for some mixing at times. So just a snapshot here of where we're seeing the freezing rain Friday into Saturday. We also have some heavy rain. Halifax, once again, this is a rain event for you, not a snow event. Heavy rain, Burgeo to Corner Brook. And a quick look at the snow before we go to a more snowy scene in the nation's capital. Mark Robinson joining us in Quebec. Oh, you've got the fire right beside you. That's nice. Or sorry, I said I'm in Ottawa. He's in Ottawa. I sort of mixed up there what I was saying. Morning brain. Woke up at 3 a.m. That's what's going on here, Mark. Okay, so tell us what's going on in Ottawa.
I think, caffeine should be going on in Ottawa right now. I'm close to Quebec. I mean, Quebec is just over there, so I'll give you that. I'm actually standing on top of Parliament, and I wanted to show you that the conditions have gone sort of quite gusty, and now they're not. So you're getting nice, the flame, the heat is coming up from the flame. You can see West Block and right behind me. Little bit of snow here. Now, one thing I did want to sort of show you here is that I'm the only one here. I expected a few people because I wanted to talk, especially with some tourists, to find out what they think of snowy Canada. But right now, we are the only ones here. That's not entirely surprising, given that when we got up this morning, took a look around, and everything was fairly quiet. I expected a few more cars on the road, not so many cars. So I think a lot of people are saying, you know what? I'm kind of tired of winter already. I know it's only mid-January. We haven't had a lot of snow, so we're just going to stay inside and not deal with this. And instead, we'll just watch Mark and Kabir go out and stand in the storm and talk about it. There's not there's right now there's being about 5 to 10 centimeters falling. There's going to fall in Ottawa. And it's slowed things down a little bit, but not as much as, say, the storm in Fort Erie. But definitely, it's just a little bit lonely on Parliament Hill today. Inside to you.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. You can see, yes, the fire is going at Parliament Hill there. As we get to our radar imagery and answer a couple of questions here, we'll leave Ontario for just a bit and we'll take you into Nova Scotia. We've got a question from YouTube. From Truro, Nova Scotia, wondering what the situation is going to be there. So our radar showing us essentially most of Nova Scotia, it is a rain event for you right now, but there will be some transitions ongoing. You can see specific to the Truro area, you're just on the cusp of the rain to the south of you. You've got the snow to the north, so you are in between where you've got that mix. And this is where conditions can be on the dangerous and slippery side, because when we get into that freezing rain and ice pellets, that can make things slick on the roads. So in terms of what we can expect moving forward for you in the Truro area and into Nova Scotia as a whole, want to just quickly take you through what you can expect essentially for today. So through the afternoon, you're continuing with that rain through most of Nova Scotia, but watch out into New Brunswick now through our Friday evening, especially north of Fredericton. That's at freezing rain and ice pellets for us there. That snowfall will be into Newfoundland. For Nova Scotia, for Truro, for you as you head into the overnight, and for your Saturday, that's when we've got that rainfall, intense rainfall, as a matter of fact, at times for us in through Nova Scotia. But again, back into Saturday morning, afternoon, Moncton, Fredericton, Highway 8 heading up toward Miramichi. Watch out for icy conditions with that freezing rain that can persist for quite some time. So for the Atlantic Canada, at least for today, heading into tomorrow, this is where all of this will continue to push through the region. Now, in terms of any additional snowfall for Southern Ontario, I want to get it back to Southern Ontario because we do have a question coming in from YouTube. Lindsay O'Hearn is asking, will the weather improve in the GTA and Southern Ontario later on today? Well, Lindsay, this is the additional snowfall that we are expecting for much of the GTA and in through Eastern Ontario. You can see Eastern Ontario, that's where most of the snowfall will be, just perhaps a couple more centimeters for us. But if you're heading out now, Kabir is in Toronto. He's downtown. Kabir can give us a live update on what you can expect heading out.
That's right, Nadine. Well, we've got a couple of construction trucks, dump trucks, and the morning commute very much in full swing. And you can see here some of that snow on the ground that, funny enough, I thought would actually continue to melt. But it looks like as the snow has come down, and even though people are walking on it, because the temperature is so much cooler, we're seeing it stick around. So some salt on the roads. Of course, people on their bicycles even going to work today, which you're going to see pass here on my right side. But of course, it's not slowing people down. In terms of traffic, though, that definitely has picked up. Nicole had mentioned that it is a PA day for the Toronto District School Board, and that definitely seems to be the case in terms of a little bit of a lightness to that commute. We're not seeing school buses. We're not necessarily seeing a ton of students either. And of course, it is exam time for the kids. So my thoughts, of course, are with them setting up. But overall, cooler temperatures, wind gusts is what I've been feeling and seeing. I'm sure you've seen that over the last little while. But overall, the commute continues. And of course, the temperature continues to be much cooler than what we have seen here. And I'm hearing it's going to be nice and sunny tomorrow, apparently, in addition to cooler temperatures, mind you. All right. And back into you, Nicole, for an update as to what we can be expecting in the future.
All right, I know Kabir's got a big smile on his face, guys, because he's going to Florida tomorrow, just so you know behind the scenes what's going on here. Now, current wind gusts over the past 24 hours, these are the peak, 55 for Toronto, 41 for Muskoka. So yeah, it's a bit breezy out there. Those northwest winds picking up, blowing any snow that you're seeing around. So certainly traveling along the 400, I think, would be a little bit kind of messy and sloppy right now. This will be ongoing today towards Ottawa and Cornwall, where we're continuing to see snowfall through the day, right into the evening commute too. For Toronto specifically, the afternoon's -3. Yes, some light snow, but things are really going to wrap up, especially for that evening commute. Easier to get around with the plows out and taking care of everything. Now into tomorrow morning, I have to mention this. It is going to be a lot colder, especially a lot colder than we have been in a while. Feels like -20, -34 rather. -34 for Timmins is what it'll feel like. -20 for Toronto is what it's going to feel like. So there is an extreme cold weather alert issued by the city of Toronto tonight because of that. Let's now check in with Mark, who is in Ottawa right now. I can't believe earlier I said that you were in Quebec. I knew you were in Ottawa. My brain, it just wasn't working. Tell us what's going on there. It looks pretty legit. It looks like a good snowstorm, Mark.
Yeah, it's actually not bad. I mean, we're looking at, I think I've sort of measured anywhere between 5 to 10 centimeters on the ground right here. Definitely slowing things down a little bit. You can't see too many cars on the road. I was expecting a few more. We are sort of getting going. Some people are moving around a little bit, finally. I'm going to say this has been a big switch from where I was. I just got back from Florida, and Kabir, I believe I just heard you're going to Florida. You lucky, lucky person.
Yeah, Mark, and it's going to be a complete contrast to what we're seeing here. Of course, those temperatures continuing to drop that I've felt here. It's that wind gusts really, really making it feel cooler. I meant to say wind chill. But yeah, Mark, I hope you enjoyed it, but you came back for the perfect time there. Overall, folks, we're looking at the morning commute very much in full swing. Be careful when you're walking outside. And of course, it's been a pleasure to be out here. Back over to you, Nadine, in the studio where you're nice and warm.
And just as I saw that bus go there behind Mark, I reminder pedestrians, never ever run for the bus, because especially in weather like this, you can slip and fall. And you know what? The bus driver might just drive off and leave you anyway. That happened to me. But anyway, many of the bus drivers are very kind and they will wait for you. So yes, we are looking at continued snowfall mixed in with some freezing rain and ice pellets, and that rain that will continue through southern Quebec and eventually continue into Atlantic Canada as well. Thank you for joining us for our live stream coverage of this entire storm from Ontario into Atlantic Canada.